What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're working on my wife's GL450 again. Actually in the process of doing the restoration project on this. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but be sure to check out the videos. So I'm kind of going over fixing a bunch of cosmetic stuff, interior and exterior, as well as some of the mechanical stuff that doesn't necessarily broken but is, you know, should be replaced just for preventative maintenance and stuff like that. But while I was working on the car doing something else, I happened to notice while being on the driver's side front corner of the car that I smelled burning coolant, or like hot coolant. I popped the hood and come to find out that my expansion tank is actually leaking at this small hose, this vent hose that comes into it. I pulled this hose back the other day looking at it and found that the nipple here off of the expansion tank actually looks like it's cracked about 3/4 of the way around. So we're going to be replacing the expansion tank today. This is a good time to just kind of tell you guys with your own vehicles, whether it's this car or anything else, to just make sure that you're inspecting your car on a somewhat regular basis. Every oil change, kind of give things a once over, make sure that stuff like that's not an issue. And even then, once a month, just pop the hood, take a peek around, just to make sure that you're not having things like that. Because I did an oil change on this car not even a month and a half ago, and that was not leaking when I did the oil change on it. And something like that, if it had broken while I was driving it, while I was on a road trip out of town, stuff like that, would have left me stranded on the side of the road calling for roadside assistance. So just inspect your car on a somewhat regular basis, and just to make sure that that stuff doesn't leave you stranded. So we're going to get this expansion tank replaced, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Let's get to it. All right, so one thing I like to do before starting any project like this is to get the new part and kind of look it over and figure out where hoses are, where mounting tabs are, stuff like that, where plug connections for sensors or anything like that are. Because a lot of times when a part is in an engine bay, you can't see the underside of it, and there could be plug connections underneath there that when you start trying to take this out and pull on it, you know, to remove it, you could be breaking things, whether it be another hose or you know, wiring or anything like that. So just get your new part, look it over, kind of figure out how it's mounted in there before going at taking the old part out. So starting over here, what I want to tell you guys, if you can, I'm going to do it because I have the ability to, is to try to suck as much coolant out of this reservoir as you can before taking hoses off, because the more coolant you get out of this before taking the hoses off, the less is going to actually end up on the floor. So I'm going to suck coolant out of this, and then we're going to work on getting these hoses off. I have these pretty nifty little tools, and I don't know, you guys can purchase them if you'd like, but these come in really handy. These are actually hose pinch off pliers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use them to pinch off these two larger hoses down at the bottom of the reservoir down there, just so after I suck fluid out, the fluid doesn't come back from the car into the reservoir, and also so when I start taking those hoses off, I don't lose all the coolant out of that. It just cuts down on the amount of wasted product as far as coolant goes, and it also keeps you from making a mess. And third thing is it makes your job a lot easier when you're going back together trying to bleed the cooling system to make sure that you have no air pockets in it. So I'm going to get these put on, get my fluid sucked out, and then I'll go over how to get everything off. All right, so we got our hose clamp off pliers in place. I used a different style here. These actually have like a special cam lock system, so you just squeeze them until they're tight on there, and then when you want to release them, you just pull them apart. This other style, which is a lot more common, these can be purchased pretty easily off of Amazon or any place like that. What you do is you have this little sliding bar here, and you spread this hose clamp apart. You put the hose in here like this, and you squeeze it down until it squeezes off the hose that you're trying to squeeze off, and then you slide this up. I'll show you off of the car. You slide this up until it's locked into some position that'll keep this clamp from coming back apart, and you can see it has these little detents on the side that hold this little locking arm in place, and then it clamps the hose off and keeps fluid from flowing through it. They're not always perfect. Sometimes they still let a little fluid through after you clamp them off, so it just kind of limits the amount of fluid that you're losing while you're doing it. So in order to get these hose clamps off, I'm going to be using a pair of needle nose 90 degrees. They make hose clamp pliers for doing these, but they're going to be kind of hard to use in this area because of how small this is. They also have the cable style hose clamp pliers, but they're also going to be pretty difficult to use just because of how close this part of this headlight housing is right here. So we're going to start by taking our hoses off. All right, and obviously my nipple was pretty well broken. The only part that came out was the actual brass part that goes into the expansion tank. So I'll have to work on getting this out. Usually what I do is I take a pick or a pocket screwdriver and work my way around the hose until I get the hose broken off of the plastic part, or like broken free from the plastic part, and then pull this piece out. So we're going to do that later, but I'm going to work on getting this expansion tank out of here. So I'm going to go down to this next hose down here. We're going to squeeze the hose clamp, slide it down on the hose, and then I'm probably going to need a pair of straight needle nose to do that other part. Squeeze these guys, pull the hose clamp up, get it out of your way. This guy was just sitting on this little mount here. It just pulls right off of it. I've got this hose kind of pulled off to the side because it actually sits on this mount right here. And then this guy back here is actually going to be your level sensor. You're just going to push down on this tab right here and push this connector off. And then the last thing we have to do is we have a 10mm nut back here that's holding the tank down. So we'll get our 10mm nut off of there. Work on getting our hoses off. I like to use either a 90 degree or a hook pick to get up underneath these hoses to work them free. You're just kind of going around the hose with the pick. Sometimes these hoses tend to get stuck on here because they've been on there for so long. This one's not too bad. See, we're going to lose a little bit of coolant there, but because of our hose clamp off pliers, we're not losing any coolant out of this side of this hose. I'm going to get this other hose off of here. Again, we're going to lose a little bit of coolant out of these hoses, but again, hose clamp off pliers, it only lost a little bit that was in that section of hose where it's not clamped off. So once you get your two hoses off, your expansion tank is actually sitting in some rubber grommets down there underneath. So we're going to pull up on the expansion tank to get it out of those rubber grommets. All right, and we got our old expansion tank out. So sometimes you're gonna have your grommets pop off like that. And if they do, you're just gonna take them off of here. I'll show you guys how these mount actually. Set that off to the side. And then these rubber grommets, they have this groove in them. That groove sits in the body of the car actually sits in that groove. So this thinner or smaller side of this grommet has to go down through the body here. And what you're going to do is you're just going to push it back into place. Usually use a pocket screwdriver or something like that to get the last little bit. This one's actually not going to fight me too hard. That one's in. All right, and that one's in. All right, so now going back together is just the reverse of the removal process. To make your job a little bit easier, putting the expansion tank back into those grommets. You can lube up this with anything that you have that's a lubricant, such as like some PB Blaster or glass cleaner or anything like that. It'll just make it easier for the plastic part of this to slide through that. So I'm gonna get this put back together. I'm gonna work on getting this nipple out of the end of this smaller hose, and we'll be done with this job. All right, so new suspension tank's all mounted up. I was able to get this nipple out of here. It's actually relatively easy, like I said. Take a pick or a pocket screwdriver and work your way around the outside of the hose between it and the plastic part. And then once I broke it free, you can kind of feel it. It'll like pop with whatever you're using. Like you'll feel it break free. And then once you do that, you just grab the nipple and pull it out of there. So the only thing I got left to do is to top this up, bleed the cooling system, make sure I don't have any air pockets in it. Other than that, pretty straightforward repair. If you guys have any questions about this video, please comment down below. Be sure to answer any of your questions. I would appreciate it if you guys to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.